The night my entire life shifted didn't look like much at first. No explosions, no lightning bolts, just a cramped community fundraiser with lukewarm coffee and half-bored smiles. But sometimes, the biggest storms arrive in silence, and you don't see them until they've already swallowed you whole. Have you ever walked into a room not knowing it would rewrite your entire story? That was me. A friend had dragged me there, insisting I needed to get out more. I almost didn't go. Funny, isn't it? How the choices we nearly avoid end up defining us. I scanned the room, ready to leave, until I saw her. Monica, standing near the coffee table, wearing a simple black dress, her hair tied back, her eyes soft but so tired it was almost painful to look at. She held her cup like it weighed 100 pounds. Later I'd find out why. 2 14-year-old daughters, a car accident that stole her husband, and years of survival that had carved exhaustion into her bones. When she laughed at something I said, it wasn't light. It was cracked, fragile, like a window ready to shatter. And I felt it, deep inside. This woman hadn't allowed herself to breathe in years. Then, when I met the girls, Ashley and Amber, I saw the same shadows in their eyes. Guarded, restless, pretending they didn't need anything while silently begging for something steady. I knew that feeling. I grew up without a father. I knew that echo, that hollow that follows you everywhere. Looking at them, I thought, I can stop that echo for them. I can be what I never had. So I stepped in. At first, small things, fixing a leaky faucet, grabbing groceries, taking them out for ice cream. But little things have a way of turning into everything. Soon, I was there more than I was home. Monica leaned on me, not just for chores, but for comfort. And I leaned right back, maybe harder than I wanted to admit. Then it happened. Ashley scraped her knee on the front steps one evening and screamed, "Dad!" The word froze the air. Monica stopped. Ashley stopped. Even I stopped. But inside me, something unlocked. That word wasn't just a title. It was a promise. From that moment, I wasn't just Aaron. I was Dad. And yes, they tested me. Teenagers test everything. Doors slammed, sarcasm sharpened, homework dragged past midnight. But I welcomed it. Because behind every test was the unspoken truth. They were letting me in. And Monica, God, the way she looked at me. Like after years of drowning, she'd finally found the surface. That look was addictive. It made me believe in forever. But forever is fragile. It only lasts until someone decides it doesn't. And I had no idea how quickly mine was about to unravel. For a while, life looked perfect. And isn't that always the most dangerous illusion? Those first months with Monica and the girls felt like a dream I didn't want to wake up from. Sometimes I'd catch myself smiling in traffic, radio humming, thinking, this is it. This is the life I was meant to live. But have you ever noticed how the moments that feel too good to be true usually are? I dove in head first. Early mornings, late nights, I didn't care. I worked extra shifts, came home exhausted, and still showed up at soccer practice. I clapped at school plays where the girls barely looked up, but still scanned the crowd for my face. And I made damn sure they always found it. Because presence, to me, wasn't optional, it was the point. Money wasn't endless, but I stretched it like rubber. Vacations weren't luxury, but we carved out escapes. Fishing at the lake, camping under skies lit with 1,000 stars, weekends in cabins where the girls roasted marshmallows until their fingers were sticky and Monica leaned into me by the fire, glass of wine in hand. I can still smell the smoke in my jacket, hear their laughter bouncing off the trees, feel Monica's head on my shoulder like it finally belonged there. The girls started calling me Dad. At first, by accident, "Dad, can you drive us?" followed by embarrassed giggles. But soon it wasn't a slip, it was deliberate. They shouted it across the yard, whispered it in tired voices at night when homework beat them down. And every time I heard it, that hollow inside me filled a little more. Maybe this was what complete felt like. And Monica? She bloomed. Her dark circles faded. Her laughter grew louder, freer. She touched my hand in public, let herself lean on me in ways she hadn't before. At night she whispered thank yous that sank deep, sometimes breathing against my ear. "I don't know what we'd do without you." Those words were gasoline for my soul. One day, I'd learned they could also burn like acid. But back then, I believed. I believed so fiercely that some nights I'd sit alone on the porch after everyone had gone to bed, the cicadas buzzing in the dark, the air heavy with summer. I'd whisper to myself, "You did it. You broke the cycle. You gave them what you never had." And I swear, the girls knew. Amber's eyes lit up when we worked through a science project, her smile shy but grateful. Ashley, sharp tongue and all, slipped a handmade Father's Day card onto my dresser. Just a folded piece of paper, but it felt like a medal. It wasn't perfect, no family ever is, but it was real. At least I thought so. But here's the truth about perfect lives. They don't shatter with explosions. They crack slowly. A sarcastic jab here, a slammed door there, a silence from Monica that lasts just a beat too long. And maybe, if I had been listening closer, I would have heard the ground shifting beneath me. But I didn't. I was too busy smiling at a dream that was already slipping through my fingers. Cracks never arrive like earthquakes. They whisper. They sneak in. They pretend to be nothing until suddenly you're staring at a wall that's no longer whole. That's how it began with Ashley and Amber. Not with explosions, but with looks. With smirks. With laughter that somehow felt sharper than silence. Ashley rolled her eyes more often. At first, I brushed it off. Teenagers, right? But then she stopped even hiding it. "Take out the trash," I'd ask. She'd fold her arms, lean against the doorway, and let the words drip with poison. "Why? You're the man of the house, aren't you?" Amber would giggle nearby, not bold enough to start the fire, but always ready to pour gasoline on it. Was this rebellion? Or was it something colder, something darker? The laughter changed too. Do you know the difference between being laughed with and being laughed at? You feel it in your chest. Around the campfire, their laughter used to be open, warm, sticky with marshmallows and trust. Now it was sharper, jagged, like glass splintering underfoot. I'd walk into the room and the air would shift, the sound bending, turning into a weapon pointed straight at me. And Monica, her silence screamed louder than anything. I thought she'd stop it, draw a line, remind them I was family. Instead, she sat at the table, phone in hand, scrolling, sipping coffee like she couldn't hear the words slicing through me. That silence cut deeper than their insults. Have you ever begged with your eyes, silently pleading for someone to back you up, only to watch them look away? I told myself she was tired, that she had carried too much already. So I carried more. I swallowed the disrespect. I convinced myself it was a phase. But here's the truth. Phases don't hollow you out. Phases don't make you feel like a stranger in your own home. One night, I made dinner. Pasta, garlic bread, salad. I set the plates down with the kind of care you only give to people you love. Ashley sat, poked her fork at the noodles, and muttered, "This is gross." Amber echoed her, snickering like her approval was a stamp on her sister's cruelty. I forced a laugh, tried to mask the sting, but inside, it felt like a knife pressed under my ribs. And Monica? She kept eating. No protest. No glance. Nothing. Later that night, lying in bed, staring at the cracks in the ceiling, the question slid in like a thief. Did they ever really see me as family? Or was I always just a placeholder? Something to lean on until they didn't need me anymore? And then came the night everything shifted. Ashley stood in the kitchen, arms crossed, chin tilted upward in defiance that didn't belong to a child anymore. Amber hovered behind her like a shadow, echoing every move. Ashley's eyes narrowed, her voice steady, sharp, merciless. "You're not our real dad." The house froze. The fridge hummed, the clock ticked, but it all blurred into nothing. Those 5 words thundered through my chest. And in that moment, something inside me didn't break, but it moved. Because when the people you've poured your soul into stab you with the truth you always feared, you realize love by itself can't hold a family together. "You're not our real dad." The words hung in the air like smoke you can't wave away. For a second, nobody moved. The house itself seemed to pause, every sound swallowed in that single sentence. Ashley stood firm, arms crossed, her chin raised like a soldier defying orders. Amber mirrored her, smirking, a shadow nodding along to her sister's cruelty. And Monica? She sat at the table, phone in hand, scrolling as though none of it was happening. No flinch, no gasp, nothing. I tried to hold steady, though my voice betrayed me with a tremor. "Ashley, I've been here for you. I've given everything. She cut me off like a blade. We didn't ask you to. Amber's echo came softer, but no less brutal. Yeah, we don't need you. I turned to Monica. My last line of defense. Are you going to let them talk to me like this? My words cracked under the weight of desperation. She didn't even glance up. They're just being kids, Aaron. Don't make it a big deal. A big deal. Do you know what it feels like to bleed out in the middle of a room and be told you're overreacting? That's what it felt like. My hand slammed against the counter before I even realized it. Not rage, just the desperate sound of a man begging to be heard. The echo startled the room, but Ashley recovered fast. Her eyes narrowed, sharper than any knife in the kitchen. You can't tell us what to do, she hissed. You're nothing. You're just Aaron. Just Aaron. Not Dad. Not family. Just a man stupid enough to believe he belonged. Amber giggled, covering her mouth, like cruelty had become comedy. I wanted to shout, to break something, to demand the respect I had earned with every sacrifice. But my body betrayed me. I just stood there, shaking, my breath uneven, my chest tight. Because what do you do when your love has turned into a punchline? Finally, Monica put her phone down. For a fleeting second, I thought she'd stand by me, that she'd look at the girls and tell them enough was enough. Instead, she delivered the final blow, her voice flat, almost bored. They have a point, Aaron. You're not their real dad. Maybe you should stop trying so hard. It wasn't shouted. It wasn't cruel. It was worse. It was indifferent. Indifference cuts deeper than hate. Hate means you matter enough to spark fire. Indifference means you're already gone. And in that moment, I realized I wasn't fighting for authority. I wasn't even fighting for respect. I was fighting for existence inside a house where I had given everything. And for the first time, a thought slithered into my mind, one I never wanted to face. What if I just walked away? After that night in the kitchen, something inside me cracked wide open. I told myself it was just one ugly moment, that kids say things they don't mean. But the truth? It wasn't a moment. It was the start of a storm. The disrespect grew teeth. Ashley stopped pretending to listen. Amber followed her lead like an echo. Do the dishes, I'd say. Ashley would smirk. Why don't you? Amber would giggle, parroting every jab. Even the way they walked past me, shoulders brushing mine, eyes daring me to push back, felt like a challenge. And Monica? She didn't just stay silent anymore. She aligned herself with them, her silence turning into quiet approval. One night, I came home late, shirt damp with sweat, tie half undone. My body screamed for rest. But the sight that greeted me was chaos. Dishes stacked high, pizza boxes curled at the corners, laundry scattered across the floor like confetti from a cruel parade. I dropped my keys on the table. The sound rang louder than I meant. Girls, I said, my voice tired but calm. Let's clean this up before bed. Ashley barked out a laugh, sharp enough to cut glass. Why don't you clean it, Aaron? You're good at that, aren't you? Amber doubled over with laughter, the sound bouncing off the walls like knives. I looked to Monica. She stood at the counter, wine glass in hand, swirling it lazily. She didn't move, didn't speak, didn't even blink. Just watched. Something in me snapped. My voice rose, sharper than it had been in years. Enough. This isn't how we live. I work all day to keep this roof over us, and the least you can do is respect the home we share. Ashley's reply came instantly, venom dripping from every word. This isn't your house. It's ours. You're just living in it. The words punched the air from my lungs. Amber nodded, smirk widening, twisting the knife. And then came Monica. She set her glass down with a soft clink, as casual as if we were discussing the weather. Her eyes never even met mine when she said it. They have a point, Aaron. The room went silent. Even the girls froze, their cruel smirks faltering for a moment. Those 4 words shredded me more than every insult combined. I had sacrificed years, money, sweat, and heart. I had been there for every scraped knee, every late-night project, every single thing that mattered. And the woman I loved, the woman I thought was my forever, looked at me and sided with them. I opened my mouth, but nothing came. No defense, no anger, no plea, just emptiness. I felt like a ghost watching his own life crumble, invisible in the house he had built. That night, as I gripped the counter to steady my shaking hands, one thought drilled itself into my skull. If Monica wasn't on my side, Then who the hell was? After Monica said those words, they have a point. Aaron, something in our house shifted. It wasn't just the girls against me anymore. It was Monica too. And once she chose their side, the balance tipped, and I was left standing on broken ground. At first, I tried to ignore it. I told myself I had to hold on, that I had started this journey to give them stability and love. But every time I looked at Monica, something in her had changed. The softness I used to see in her eyes was gone. Her gratitude had been replaced with distance, her warmth with detachment. She spent more time on her phone than with me. At first, I brushed it off. Everybody scrolls, right? But soon, it wasn't casual. She tilted the screen away when I walked in. She laughed at messages she didn't share. Nights that once belonged to us, couch talks, late-night whispers, turned into nights where she rolled over, phone glowing in her hand, telling me she was too tired. And then one evening, it happened. Her phone buzzed on the counter while she showered. I wasn't looking for anything. I didn't want to look. But the screen lit up, and the message read, "Wish I could see you tonight." Missed that smile. My stomach clenched. My hands shook before I even touched the phone. I told myself not to. But I did. What I found wasn't one man. It wasn't even just one conversation. It was dozens. Dating profiles, flirty chats, pictures, strangers she called handsome and babe. Whole threads of late-night exchanges that felt like private worlds I had never been allowed into. I stood in that kitchen, staring at her words glowing back at me, and it felt like the ground had been ripped out from under my feet. Do you know what it's like to realize the person you thought was your safe place had been building escape routes behind your back? All those nights she told me she was tired. She wasn't tired. She was busy. All those whispers of, "I don't know what we'd do without you," they were lies. She wasn't holding on to me. She was reaching for someone else. I set the phone down before my trembling hands could drop it. The shower kept running in the background, the steam filling the hallway. A moment later, she walked into the kitchen, hair damp, smelling of lavender soap, her robe brushing her skin. She barely looked at me, just smiled faintly as she reached for her phone. And I looked at her, really looked, at the woman I had loved, the woman I had built my life around. And I realized I didn't recognize her anymore. She was a stranger wearing the face of my forever. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay awake, every vibration of her phone echoing in my head, every memory of her gratitude dissolving under the weight of betrayal. My chest felt tight, my body restless, like I couldn't breathe in my own bed. By morning, I knew one truth with brutal clarity. Monica wasn't mine anymore. Maybe she never had been. And yet I stayed. Not because I believed in her, not because I thought things would change, but because I needed proof. Evidence. Something undeniable that could make sense of the madness I was drowning in. Because deep down, I already knew. The woman I loved was betraying me in the shadows. And those shadows were only growing darker. I stopped. That was the beginning of my revenge. No yelling, no plates shattering against the wall, just silence. For years, I had been the engine of that house. Every vacation, every dinner, every comfort came from me. And suddenly, I cut the fuel. At first, it was small things. No more Starbucks after school. No more pizza on Friday nights. No more sneakers that cost half a paycheck. When Monica mentioned a much-needed family vacation, I smiled and said, "Not this year." The look on her face told me she hadn't expected that. The girls noticed fast. Ashley rolled her eyes louder than usual, muttering, "Cheap." Amber whispered, "We knew this was coming," like it was some victory. But their smirks didn't shake me. For the first time in years, I felt steady. I still paid the bills, the mortgage, the lights, the water, the basics. But the extras, the luxuries, the things they had grown addicted to, gone overnight. And you know what happens when you take away comfort? Masks slip. Monica's smirk while scrolling through her phone turned into pacing around the kitchen, frustrated. The girls' laughter at my expense turned into whining about boredom. "Why don't we ever do anything fun anymore?" they'd snap. And I'd just sip my coffee, watching. I'll never forget the night Monica tried to guilt me. The girls were upstairs. She leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "You've changed, Aaron." I met her eyes and said, calm as stone, "No, Monica. I've just stopped pretending." For once, she had no comeback. Just silence. And in that silence, I found clarity. But the girls didn't back down. If anything, they escalated. Ashley slammed doors like she was trying to break the hinges. Amber parroted her every insult. You're useless, Aaron. You're not Dad. Why don't you just leave already? And Monica, she didn't defend me. She fed the fire. Every refusal, every no from me became another excuse for her to push harder. It was as if they thought shame would make me fold, return to the man who gave endlessly. But those days were gone. The house grew thick with tension. You could feel it in the air, heavy and sharp, like breathing smoke. The girls stopped asking me for rides. They demanded them. And when I refused, they lashed out. One morning, I found my work jacket tossed in the mud outside. Another night, my laptop charger vanished. Ashley shrugged when I asked. Amber giggled. Maybe you should be more careful. Their cruelty wasn't accidental anymore. It was deliberate. And Monica? She watched it all, swirling her wine, her detachment like gasoline on the fire. But here's the part they never saw coming. While they thought they were breaking me, I was preparing. Every refusal was practice. Every insult was fuel. Every cruel laugh reminded me that I was done being their provider, their target, their fool. Because if they thought I would stay forever, silently taking the abuse, they were dead wrong. When I stopped giving, they stopped pretending. The house turned into a war zone, and I was the target. Every day brought a new act of sabotage. One morning, I stepped outside to find my car smeared with sticky soda, fast food wrappers plastered to the windshield. Amber's face was in the window, grinning like she'd just pulled the prank of her life. Ashley stood beside her, phone raised, recording my reaction like I was their personal entertainment. Smile, Aaron, she yelled through the glass. You're famous now. Inside, it was no better. Tools vanished from the garage. My favorite coffee mug accidentally shattered. Shirts came out of the laundry with bleach stains I knew weren't mistakes. Every day, a new cut. Death by 1,000 petty cruelties. And Monica? She didn't just allow it. She fueled it. One night, I came home to find the TV remote glued shut with nail polish. I stared at it in disbelief, then turned to the girls. My voice wasn't angry. It was tired, raw. Why are you doing this? What did I ever do to deserve this kind of hate? Ashley smirked. You exist. Amber giggled, parroting. Yeah, you exist. I turned to Monica, begging, even then, for her to say something, anything. She leaned back on the couch, swirling her wine, and delivered her verdict. They're just blowing off steam, Aaron. Don't be so sensitive. Sensitive. That word cut deeper than the vandalism. Because it wasn't dismissal, it was permission. She was telling them cruelty was allowed, as long as it was directed at me. From that point, the attacks escalated. Ashley mocked me in front of her friends, loud enough to make sure I heard. Amber laughed like a background track, repeating every insult. He's pathetic. He thinks he's Dad. What a joke. I tried to block it out, but you can't ignore poison in your own home. I was living in a place where my love had turned into a punchline, where my presence was nothing more than a target for their amusement. But here's the part they didn't see. I wasn't just taking it. I was recording it. I started keeping a folder. Screenshots of Monica's dating profiles. Photos of my ruined belongings. Audio recordings of their voices spitting venom, threatening me, laughing at me. Every insult, every act of sabotage became evidence. Because deep down, I knew this story wouldn't end with me broken. It would end with me walking away, but not empty-handed. So while they thought they were winning, I was building my case. While they mocked, I planned. While they tore at me piece by piece, I prepared for the moment when I would finally set it all down and make sure they paid for every cut. And trust me, that moment was coming. I wasn't leaving broken. I was leaving armed. Every insult, every cruel laugh, every shattered mug, I documented it all. My phone became my shield. Screenshots of Monica's dating profiles, late-night chats with men who had no idea she was married. Saved messages where she whispered to strangers the things she hadn't said to me in years. Photos of vandalized jackets, bleached shirts, a shattered coffee mug in the sink. Even recordings of Ashley and Amber chanting that I was nothing. Click. Save. File. Repeat. Each piece of evidence was another nail in the coffin of a marriage that had once felt like salvation. One afternoon, I sat across from an attorney, a thick folder heavy in my hands. She flipped through the pages silently, her face unreadable until she looked up and said, "You've built a strong case. You don't just walk away from this, you walk away protected." Protected. That word felt foreign. For years, I had been the one unprotected, the punching bag for 3 people who thrived on breaking me. But now, the power was shifting. The night I told Monica I was filing for divorce, her mask slipped. For months she had been detached, smug, scrolling her phone like I was already gone. But that night she snapped. "You're seriously doing this?" She spat, her voice sharp, trembling. "After everything I've sacrificed for you." I laughed, hollow and bitter. "Sacrificed? You drained me. My time, my money, my sanity. I gave everything, and you repaid me with lies." The girls stormed in, teeth bared. Ashley shouted, "Good. Leave. We never wanted you anyway." Amber echoed, "Yeah, go. Nobody cares." But I didn't argue. I didn't shout. I just looked at Monica, straight into her eyes, and spoke the truth I had been carrying for too long. "I'm done being your provider. I'm done being your target. From this day forward, I'm done with all of you." And then I went upstairs, shut down every shared account, pulled my name from every credit card, froze the joint bank account. Within an hour, the castle they had mocked me from turned into a prison with no keys. The panic was instant. Monica stormed up the stairs, shouting about bills, groceries, survival. The girls screamed from the hallway, voices cracking as they realized their lifeline had just been cut. But I felt nothing. No guilt. No fear. Just cold clarity. For the first time in years, I wasn't reacting. I was acting. And the divorce papers were already in motion. When the papers were filed, I felt lighter than I had in years. A weight I didn't even know I carried slid off my shoulders. For so long, I had bent, broken, bled myself dry to hold together a family that was never really mine. And now? Now I was free. The first few days were loud. Monica's number lit up my phone, message after message. At first, it was venom. "You'll regret this. You can't just walk out. You're nothing without us." The girls chimed in too, teenage rage pouring through the screen. "Good riddance. You were never our dad anyway." I didn't reply. Not once. And as the days passed, the tone shifted. Rage turned to pleading. "We're sorry. Things got out of hand. Can we talk?" Monica's words grew softer. "The girls miss you. I miss you. Maybe we can work this out." But by then, I had learned the hardest truth of all. Apologies from people who never respected you aren't apologies. They're survival tactics. They weren't sorry for what they did. They were sorry for what they lost. And I wasn't about to give it back. So I cut them off completely. Blocked the numbers. Moved my money into accounts only I could touch. My attorney handled the rest. The house, the one I had paid for, the one they had poisoned, was no longer my prison. Monica could have it, with all its ghosts. For the first time in years, I woke up to silence. Not the suffocating silence of contempt, but the kind that feels like oxygen. No insults. No slammed doors. No tension thick enough to choke on. Just peace. And in that peace, a revelation hit me. Love is not measured by how much you give. It's measured by whether the people you give to actually value it. I had given Monica and her daughters everything. My time, my money, my heart. And they treated me like a resource, not a person. An ATM with a pulse. But here's the truth I carry now. I am not an ATM. I am not a punching bag. I am a man who deserves respect, loyalty, and love. And if you're listening to this, if you've ever found yourself taken for granted, betrayed, treated like nothing but a wallet or a convenience, then listen carefully. Never let anyone reduce you to less than you are. Never stay in a place where your presence is tolerated but never valued. And never, ever, be afraid to walk away. Because sometimes, the greatest act of love you can give is love for yourself. And that's what I chose. Freedom.